We're now going to move on to a follow-up discussion to the topic that we discussed on last week's show, which was the face heel paradigm in wrestling. So basically, Steven proposed an idea that we should flip the entire model of faces and heels in WWE. Most people in the company should be tweeners, and they should have more enriched characters that elicit the reactions from the crowd and not just worry about fitting people into categories, saying, oh, you're a heel and you have to do this, you're a face and you have to do that. Make it a little bit more natural. And he used John Cena as an example. The biggest criticism that I heard about your proposed idea was the fact that you centered the model on the example of John Cena. And a lot of people have said that it would be difficult to do that because it's not as if who John Cena is today in WWE and the reaction that he gets from the crowd is intentional. For all intents and purposes, we can call it a mistake. Because I'm quite sure before Vince McMahon pulled the trigger on John Cena's push many, many years ago, if you had asked him the question, what do you want the result of this push to be? I guarantee you he would not answer, half the crowd loves John Cena, half the crowd hates John Cena. So, with that in mind, how do you address that criticism? That it's hard to base the model off of John Cena.
Right. Well, it is hard to base it off of John Cena, but it's not impossible. And last week I gave some examples of non-John Cena people who kind of elicit the same 50-50 reaction. And the thing is, they don't do it in a vacuum like Cena does. That's where Cena is unique, where he has this divisive aura about him no matter what he's doing. But you can get that if you situate the wrestlers correctly. So by that I mean you take two guys who are loved, Kevin Owens and Finn Balor. You put them against each other, and suddenly there's a split. You take Sasha Banks, you take Bayley, suddenly there's a split. And that's not a matter of, well, I like Sasha or I don't, I like Becky or I don't. It's a matter of who do you like better. Are you a Kevin Owens person or are you a Finn Balor person? And that's going to create a friction within the fan base that is very John Cena-like because suddenly you have a reason to chant almost because there's these other guys. These are the Finn Balor guys. We don't want them to get their way. We want to get our way. We're the Kevin Owens guys, you know. This is sort of how it works with John Cena. There's all these kids. They're the Cena people. We don't want Cena, so we're going to boo him. And I always liken it to like sports teams. I think that's one of the reasons why sports in general are so lucrative and long-standing is because you have these divides and you have these almost teams. You have these camps, you know. You're either a Yankees person or you're a Mets person. Same thing could be said if you were to put CM Punk or Daniel Bryan. At that point, you got to choose. You may like both of them, but who are you a bigger fan of? Same thing with Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. That was another example. These are two very popular guys, but when you put them against each other, suddenly there's a divide. So I think you can do it. It's just that you got to make likable stars in order to create that divide. Like, you can't have just one guy who is above and beyond everyone. I mean, I guess you can, but I guess that guy in our instance would be Daniel Bryan because he's, from what I can see, cheered over everyone else. But even him, he would get, I'm sure if you put him against another fan favorite, he would get some people who are rooting for the other guy, you know? And so
I can speak for myself in saying that I definitely thought Danny Bryan was a heel going into Fastlane. Like that whole WrestleMania build up, and he was trying to
were you
steal.
were you rooting for Roman Reigns?
Hell yeah! Like
Okay.
Daniel Bryan was, he was an entitled jackass, and I
Now,
looked at that
I
guy and I was
disagree.
like, I looked at him and I was like, I hope Roman Reigns breaks you in half.
He was being a little bit of a dick, but he wasn't an entitled jackass. I mean, come on, this guy, he vacated the world title and he never got his rematch. But anyway, this is what I'm talking
That's
about.
not
See,
his fault.
right, okay, but
What
look,
does Roman Reigns have to do with that? But I guess exactly what's happening right now.
that's my
It's what
point.
you're talking about.
It is what I'm talking about. What I don't like is when you have one guy who is over and above the fan favorite and no one, the people don't care about the other guy. So I'm not sure what an example would be. I guess Daniel Bryan versus Randy, as good of a feud that was, everyone wanted Daniel Bryan to win. And I think that is kind of a problem because that's not. Maybe I picked a bad example because those were real emotions.
Hmm.
Daniel Bryan, I think, arguably one of the only people to elicit real, like, babyface emotions. a long time, so maybe I picked a bad example. But whenever you have a popular face against a heel, it's not that you need the baby face to win, right? It's that you just want him to win. And I think that's where wrestling is starting to fail because that's not a real feeling. It's just I want my guy to win, but I don't need him to win. I don't feel so strongly about it that my day will be ruined if my guy does not win. And I think that's what you got to do. And whenever Cena's involved, that's how things are. Like if it's Cena versus Bryan, it's like if Bryan does not win, I am going to be pissed off and I'm going to be sad. When it's Cena versus Punk, same deal. When it's Cena versus basically anyone else, you get this feeling because Cena actually elicits those emotions. That should be how all main events, at least, are structured. I would argue you should extend that to most of the roster.
So basically, you're saying it doesn't matter that the reaction that John Cena gets right now was a mistake because it's like WWE. I guess you could say they stumbled into greatness. Could that possibly be what you're trying to
Well,
say? Because I
it's hard to say because Cena's such a loaded individual. It's hard to separate what we're talking about from everything else John Cena represents. But I do think it was a mistake that, in a lot of ways, was very beneficial because I know personally during that time from 2007 to 2009, maybe, whenever Cena's reign of terror was going on, like I legit would tune in to see Cena lose. Like every pay per view, I'm like, is this going to be the guy that finally takes the belt off of Cena? So Cena was operating as a heel in my eyes, but he wasn't this conventional heel who goes out and gets intentional heel heat. He was just a guy existing, and I will pay money to see him lose. Now, I think the fact that it was a mistake is actually what I'm advocating. I'm saying stop trying to force reactions. Make most of the characters as neutral as you can and let the reactions speak for themselves. And then what you'll get is real emotions and not forced emotions. Like are people booing Sheamus because he's going out and insulting them and being mean to them because he's a big bad guy, or are they booing Sheamus because they really don't like Sheamus? Well, I think it's the latter, but still, in a lot of cases, it's hard to tell, right? Um, I was just watching right before this. I was rewatching the Seth Rollins opening thing, where Rollins calls Sheamus Ronald McDonald, and then Sheamus says, "Don't you disrespect my family like that," or something. And it's like this is the cartoony heel crap that I'm talking about. Like this is so stupid. And then you have the crowd chanting, "This you look stupid," and Sheamus is like, "No, I don't look stupid. You will respect the Hawk." And I'm like, "This is dumb. Like this is kid stuff." And it's working to an extent. People are having fun, but it's not legitimate and it's not going to last. Like you can't run Sheamus being hated because of his hair in the main event. You could do that in the mid card, but this is the guy holding the Money in the Bank. He could possibly be the next world champion. You can't have his heat based on his hair, you know? That can't be what draws people towards this character is the fact that he looks stupid. And I think a lot of people in the business would disagree with me on this because Sheamus is one of those guys. I've heard him do interviews and he's like, yes, that's the reaction I want. If you want people to hate my hair. Well, Sheamus is thinking like a heel, and I don't blame him because that's the system he's in. He's just trying to get heel heat, and it works, but it's not this deep emotional thing, you know? People don't really think Sheamus is so stupid looking that they will buy tickets to see him lose. That's just how it is, you know?
there's someone in the chat saying that you're wanting WWE to become the UFC. Like, I guess you could possibly say that, and
Yeah,
hell,
sure.
maybe yeah, because what I would say is just for WWE to catch up to the world that has grown around them, because society has changed so much from the point where the archetypes of what a heel is supposed to be and what a face is supposed to be when they were established, and it's just like that has just those pillars in the wrestling industry, they've lasted for so long. But we're at a point in society right now where we have people like Walter White, we have people like Jax Teller, we have people like hell, Omar from The Wire. Like, we have all of these people who I guess you could possibly consider them good guys, but they don't necessarily always do good things. And you root for them because you have an emotional connection to them, not necessarily because they're a good guy and you have to. You root for them because you want to. And I guess, like, basically to sum everything up, WWE should be at a point right now where they catch up to the world that has grown immensely around them.
Yeah, I think I said this before, but we're in a
Tyrion Lannister, yeah, there you go.
we're in a golden age of television right now, and WWE has not even begun to catch up, and they don't even understand what is surrounding them. The fact that WWE does not see that they're competing, and Vince always pays lip service to this. Like he'll say, "Yeah, I'm competing with everything else on TV," but he doesn't act like it because if he acted like it, he would see Breaking Bad. He would say, "I could write a show just as well as that is." He would see Game of Thrones. He would see even kids shows, like I've argued, are better written than WWE. So this is like they're really behind. They don't understand that the standard for television is so high right now that it's no wonder why people are really bored with WWE. And in some ways, they're lucky because when wrestling is good, it's great. As I think Max Landis is the one who said that. Maybe people before him in his wrestling is not wrestling or something documentary. He said when wrestling is good, it's great, which is true. So that keeps people like me watching and people, I'm sure, in this audience watching because we're waiting for those big moments, which do come once in a while, that make us say, okay, oh, this is why I'm watching. That's right. But it's not every week, and it's not even every month. It's not always even every 2 months. It could be once a year, maybe twice a year, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, which is very, very small compared to how many episodes of Raw air. So they really got to catch up, and their methods are not modern. And yeah, the UFC would be a great model. That would be the model that I'd say they should look at. And to some extent, it shouldn't be exactly like the UFC because the UFC is obviously legit fighting. So there's weight classes, there's all this stuff. I don't advocate that WWE goes back to weight classes. I think that box has opened up, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Now that
You can't
guys,
put Rey Mysterio back in there.
yeah, you can't put Rey Mysterio, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Shawn Michaels, all these guys back in the bottle. We already established that that smaller guys could win the world title. So you can't really retcon that. And I think if they did, it'd be a mistake because the smaller guys are usually the more popular guys at this time. So I don't say they go to an exact UFC model, but I do say that they should look at that and they should kind of use it as a model for how wrestling should be.